Call on the third reading of the State Sector Bill, and Labor, our position after hearing the committee stage of the bill, remains absolutely opposed to the component of the bill, Part 2 and 3 of the bill, once it was split off with Archives and National Library. We remain committed to the merger of research, science and technology, but we do have to add the rejoinder that department must be adequately funded, or we won't see the innovation emerging from that department. I want to just mention in the House some of the observations that we've made today and how disappointing it was to see the Minister in the chair, Minister Guy, who looks a really straight and prosaic sort of plodding minister who gets the work done, a farmer by background who has never managed a large number of people and who failed to demonstrate an understanding today about the culture of the organisations which he has been led by a Minister, Tony Ryle, who's far more cunning in his endeavour to restructure the public service, with hands all over the public service, who has bullied Nathan Guy into accepting that this is just a simple realignment by putting the National Library and Archives and the Turnbull into the Department of Internal Affairs, and he has been absolutely duped by his senior minister. And it was an appalling thing to see in the House as we came to Part 3 of the Public Records debate on the State Sector Amendment Bill, to see the Minister, on request to table a Crown Law opinion at the request of Grant Robertson, reach for the twink to alter that report before Labor could get to the table. The whole point of Archives New Zealand and the independence of the archivist is to have transparency and open access to the public record, and only the independence of the chief archivist can decide what can be deleted. How on earth could we trust that minister in the chair, who will forever be named as Twinkie Guy? And that will stick with him. He's never managed an organisation. He fails to understand the cultural impact of an organisation he's inherited that went through this experiment in the 90s, failed dismally, and only a decade ago was given institutional independence and has thrived ever since. The Audit Department could find no fault with this department. Neither could the public of New Zealand. No complaints. But we heard the Minister say the reason why it needs to be put back into the Department of Internal Affairs because it had a leaky roof. Well, the Minister, Tony Ryle, had a far better rationalisation than just the leaky roof. He said, and he said it when he first came to the House in a very quiet and measured voice, that the purpose of these amalgamations is to improve services within their existing boundaries, reduce cost in the short to medium term, and future-proof the long-term delivery of government services. What a lot of baloney, what a lot of blah. The Minister did this so that he could slash and burn the public services, so that he could grow some super ministries and get them under his purview. Tony Ryle's purview, that is. And I think that it's very sad to see Nathan Guy marginalised, just as the Chief Librarian and the Chief Archivist are absolutely being marginalised by their third-tier reporting position to the Chief Executive of the Department of Internal Affairs. Tony Ryle did make a good point about the new digital platform, but why would Tony Ryle think that the digital platform was better placed with the Department of Internal Affairs than any other ministry? Why? Because they're going through a process at the moment of digitalisation, and this is going to simply add layer upon layer of pressure on that platform, and heaven forbid, we've seen that in Parliament as we've tried to upgrade a simple IT program for members of Parliament that simply has failed us in doing our function. I don't think the digitalisation here is ever going to deliver the efficiencies that Tony Ryle wants to achieve. Chris Finlayson, as the Minister of Arts, Culture and Heritage, I find distinctly interesting that his opinion, is absolutely missing here in a Cabinet decision. What on earth was the Minister of Arts, Culture and Heritage doing, missing in action, to allow this fundamental error to occur? Well, he wasn't a minister and he wasn't around in the 1990s to know that that failed then and it will fail again as the culture of these organisations cause nothing but conflict. So we see the Minister of the Minister of Crown entities here limp in his delivery, trying to convince us all that this was going to be a good thing, primarily for the public of New Zealand. It was nice to hear Minister Ryle actually show a little bit of concern for the staff. I have never heard government ministers ever acknowledge the pressure that they are putting on the public services, and that's why we're sitting in urgency at 3:20 on a Saturday afternoon, because Tony Ryle said that librarians, archives, all wanted to know that they had certainty to be merged with the super ministry, the Department of Internal Affairs, by February. That's why we're here. That's why we're here discussing this bill in urgency today. I have never heard a Minister of the Crown show any vague concern at all for the staff's well-being as bureaucrats. They've been treated as fodder, they've been slashed and burned, they've shown an absolute arrogance for understanding the professionalism, also the institutional memory of so many of our senior, they're not bureaucrats, they're professionals in the public service, a public service that New Zealand was proud of in the 9 years under Labour, that is now being decimated in the guise of efficiency and improved services to the public. Mr. Speaker, we oppose this bill. We put up, I think, in opposition. Grant Robertson had several very serious amendments. They were serious amendments that were totally disregarded, like, why bother? You're there, we won, you lost, eat that. But those amendments put up by someone who knows about the culture of archives, the public library and the Turnbull, were totally disregarded. That's the right of government. But there will be problems with the independence of those officers. And I was pleased to hear Grant say, or my colleagues say, that when Labor returns to government, and it will happen, that we will restore that level of independence for the Chief Archivist and the Chief Librarian. So what a sad day. They got it wrong. They won't admit it and never will. So they'll stand up there and say it's fantastic, we've done that, done and dusted, let's move on to the next item on the bills paper. There are people behind this, there are entities behind this that have been built up with a level of pride and professionalism that are going to be decimated in this transition back into a super ministry. I think it's terribly sad. I don't believe that the digitalisation is going to work any better actually than we set out, and I recall a speech by Marion Hobbs talking about the need to digitise the archival record. It's slow, it's not easy, it's a long process. We've got to invest in that process. So here, what are we going to achieve? We're going to achieve something like 50 jobs, 15 jobs are lost, and they'll say that's good, 15 more public servants down the road at a savings of $165,000 a year. The Minister today, for the first time, tabled his figures that said, oh no, it'll be 1.5 million. We have never had access to that figure. We have asked for it in written questions. There have been Official Information Act requests. So we query, with a minister that had his twink pen ready to delete things, that even there is any rigour behind the figures that minister tabled in the House today. So our minority report in this bill before it was split up says it all. We are deeply saddened. I'm deeply saddened.
Sorry to interrupt you.